there's four levers to pull on the financial journey to financial independence, right? You can spend less, you can earn more active income, you can invest and generate a return, or you can create assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you must do some combination or at least one of those four things in order to advance your financial position.
You're listening to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show, a podcast that discusses the intricacies of real estate investing with your host, Marcus E. Maloney. Marcus is a real estate investor best known for being the equity king. He's been awarded that moniker because he and his team find amazing real estate deals. He will be talking with investors who have done some transformational things in the real estate industry. They'll discuss their process, their strategies, and how their investments transform their lives and the communities they invest in. We welcome you to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show.
Hello, guys and family. Welcome to another We Love Equity Real Estate podcast show. On today, we have the illustrious Scott Trench. If you don't know who Scott Trench is, I don't know where you've been at, especially if you're a real estate investor or you're in the personal finance business. Scott Trench hails from Denver. He is the CEO and president of BiggerPockets. He's the author of Set for Life, which is a wonderful book that you need to read if you're looking into personal finance. He's the co-host of the BiggerPockets Money podcast. He's a real estate investor, a house hacker, and he's definitely a personal finance influence. So, Scott, welcome you to the show, man. I know you have some awesome information that you have for our family and our listeners today.
Well, thank you, Marcus. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much, man. I know you're doing a lot, and I know you're prepping for the BiggerPockets conference on next week. Again, I will definitely be there. I will be in the building just to meet some of the faces and to see some of the bloggers that I blog with, and just to really just talk all things real estate and personal finance. So definitely get a chance to see you on next week. So let's kind of just roll on, man, and get started. So Scott, you're big in personal finance, you're a real estate investor. Tell me, what was your inspiration to get you started in real estate?
Sure. So I started my career at a Fortune 500 company as a financial analyst, and I kind of within a couple of months of starting that job looked around and saw that if I pursued my career, I'd go from my job as associate financial analyst, and a year later I'd be a financial analyst 1, and then after a year or two after that I'd be financial analyst 2, and then senior financial analyst, finance manager, senior finance manager, director of finance, senior director of finance, VP of finance, senior VP of finance, CFO, and that was if things went really well. And I got all those promotions, and I thought, looking around, that was not the career path that I wanted for myself. So I became interested in the concept of financial independence, the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. And, the biggest influencer probably in those early days was a guy named Mr. Money Mustache, who I'm sure many people have heard of. And his approach to extreme frugality really kind of appealed to me because I didn't see a clear path to earning more income, and I had no assets with which to invest to generate returns. So I began being very frugal. And then as I became very frugal, I realized, if I index fund invest, which is what a lot of financial independence and personal finance bloggers promote as a path to financial independence, is be very frugal, save a solid income, and index fund your way to financial freedom. I thought, hey, I'll be retired in 15 or 20 years. That's pretty good to retire in your 40s. But, being 23, I was like, that seems too slow still. So that's when I kind of began getting interested in real estate investing and stumbled across a fledgling website and podcast called BiggerPockets. So I began listening to that podcast and following the blog and reading, and joining the community and meeting members and those sorts of things. And then I eventually met the founder, which is how I got a career here. But that's how I became interested in real estate.
Okay, so kind of going back, being a finance major and everything like that. So that time frame of retiring, in 15 years wasn't suitable for you, and you started, listening to Mr. Money Mustache, on his podcast, which is an awesome podcast, guys. why did you turn over into real estate versus doing something totally different, like, multi-level media marketing and things like that?
I think the appeal of so first of all, there's four levers to pull on the financial journey to financial independence, right? You can spend less, you can earn more active income, you can invest and generate a return, or you can create assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you must do some combination or at least one of those four things in order to advance your financial position. And while I was doing this, I focused on spending very little because I couldn't earn much more active income at my job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also focused on creating assets. I didn't focus on investing because I had nothing to invest. I was starting with basically scratch, which is a phenomenal advantage, not starting deep in the hole in student loan debt. But that was the reason I focused on those two things. So I spent very little, and I tried to create a new source of income. I started trying to tutor. I started trying to sell punny T-shirts. That was a great way to lose $800. I started a winter gloves for driving business. I considered doing a winter tire rental business here in Denver, and none of these ideas really ever panned out or began working. But I was trying these at every point. The reason I became interested in real estate was mostly because it was allow me to reduce my expenses even further. My initial attraction wasn't necessarily the long-term real estate investor profile. It was, if I house hack, if I buy a duplex and rent out the other unit, I will be able to cover my mortgage and largely live for free. And that will allow me to accumulate a lot more cash very quickly with which to invest and create assets or businesses.
Okay. So just to recap, the four pillars, to financial and to wealth is to earn more, spend little, create assets, and invest. So you said that you couldn't really expedite or speed up your earning potential, and you didn't have anything to invest. So it was basically creating those assets and spending little or being frugal. So creating those assets, this was going into your entrepreneurial blood, pretty much trying to do these different businesses. So what did you do to kind of spend little? I know that you were being very frugal, but kind of help the listeners out to know some of the things that you did, as a 23-year-old, to spend little to make sure that you can save and have that money to invest.
Sure. So the first thing is housing. That's the biggest expense for most people. And with that, I lived in a not very nice apartment with a roommate. And that was, it's a very simplistic solution. But, at the time I was making $48,000 a year out of college, and most of my peers earning the same amount of money were living in much fancier places. So that was item number one, and by far the most important. Number two was my vehicle. I drove a Toyota Corolla. It was a new Toyota Corolla, but I didn't buy a Lexus. And right. So I never locked myself into a crazy financial payment. I still think that buying the new Toyota Corolla was actually a financial mistake, and that I could have done better by buying a 7 or 8 year old model where the depreciation had already taken its toll. But at least it didn't screw up too badly on the car front with the Corolla, right? And then third, I brought my lunches to work most days. And then, I was 22, 23. So very important part of my recreational time was drinking lots of beers. And so I would buy light beer and that kind of stuff and bring it to my friend's place, and then not spend all that money at the bar, or spend as little as I could.
Gotcha. So, and then having that mindset, I mean, that's the main thing that's key. Cause like you said, some of your peers, they would have the $50,000 annually income, and they would go out and they would buy the nicer car. They would live in the nicer, condo or something like that. So how did you catch any flack, from your peers saying, hey, Scott, what are you doing, man? Why are you living over here when you can live over here? Why are you buying a Corolla when you can buy, that Lexus, or maybe even a Nissan Maxima, something, a little bit better? How was that dialogue or that communication with your peers?
Yeah, it was fine. I was pretty open about what I was doing and why. I think that, I'm not exactly secretive about it in public general, so I'm not secret about it with my friends either. It was just, hey, here's what I'm doing and why, and they, a couple friends are kind of on a similar path, and a couple aren't, and it is what it is, and it's not a a thing there. For a period, it frustrated me that some of my friends weren't doing the things that I thought might be helpful to them to advance their financial position, and making not even really big sacrifices, just like some changes that would result in the same quality of life and happiness, but thousands more a month in wealth accumulation. Yep. But I don't like bring that up anymore. And there's two things with that, because a lot of people I think get frustrated once they discover FIRE or investing, and they're like, why aren't you also doing this, everybody? And there's two components to that. One, I think it's unrelatable to live below your means to a lot of people. They don't understand, hey, I can live in downtown Denver in the high rise. Why would I live in that place there?
Exactly.
That's near to work when I can live near all the cool stuff. So they don't understand that when that's happening. And then second, after a couple of years go by and I've saved $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month for a couple of years, and I plop down $50,000 or $75,000 on a real estate investment, that's an unfathomable amount of liquidity to these same people a few years, shortly down the road. So at both points, you're just unrelatable to your peers. And so it's just, a choice. People are interested, you can talk about it. If not, leave it there.
And that is true. And that's definitely something different and something hard with those that are looking for that financial independence, and that are investors and entrepreneurs. Our minds are wired completely different than the regular, 9-to-5ers, play it safe, be secure, and retire. So I know you brought up the word FIRE. For the listeners that don't understand or don't know what the word FIRE means, kind of explain that to us.
It's an acronym. I can't remember who put that out there, but
coined it. Yep.
Financial Independence, Retire Early, FIRE. So it's just one of those. Some people call it F.I.R.E, Financial Independence. Some people call it R.E, Retire Early. Some people put them together and call it FIRE.
So, and I know right now, I'm a little bit older. So I know right now that the Retire Early is, really going mainstream now, so you have different perspectives when it comes to personal finance. I mean, you have different gurus. You have like the Susie Ormans or the Dave Ramseys, Robert Kiyosaki's and things of that nature. So it's really starting to take home and grab a grip, to those that are just entering the workforce or at level 1 or level 2 in the workforce. So tell me, who was your inspiration and who did you follow? I know you said Mr. Money Mustache. For those who don't know who Mr. Money Mustache is, kind of introduce us lightly to Mr. Money Mustache podcast for those who don't know.
Yeah, so I don't think he has a podcast, although he does post to YouTube and occasionally has Instagram.
You're right.
But he's got a very popular blog at mrmoneymustache.com. He and his kind of whole approach is he was one of the folks who maybe helped bring the financial independence movement more to the mainstream. He wasn't necessarily the first, but he was one of the earlier folks on it. And he has a very engaging and wonderful writing style that will kind of suck you in and make you feel like you could do this and that this is for you. And that happiness isn't at the, fancy restaurant or in the fancy car, but in having control of your life and doing things yourself and, the kind of principles of self-reliance and independence, those types of things. And that really appealed to me, and it still does. And I remain a massive fan of Mr. Money Mustache to this day. And, so that was certainly one of the things that really sucked me in and got me completely gung-ho about the financial independence movement and got me in. And the other set of influencers were Josh Dorkin, the founder of BiggerPockets, and Brandon Turner, the host of the BiggerPockets podcast. I was huge fans of them, and I still remember the first time I met them in a job interview setting, how intimidated I was. But yeah, they kind of made real estate investing seem accessible to me and showed me the power that you can of real estate investing as a tool to move you towards your financial goals.
So tell me about because now you're the CEO and president of BiggerPockets. How did that transpire? How did you go from being a follower and a listener to now really taking the reins?
Sure. So after that first year at Fortune 500 company as a financial analyst, I saved up about $20,000 ish, maybe maybe $17,000 in the exact 12 months, but 20-ish thousand by the end of 2014. And around that time, two major events happened. One, I joined BiggerPockets, and two, I bought my first rental property investment within about 2 months of each other.
Okay.
And the reason I joined BiggerPockets was I was looking for, I knew that I didn't want the career track that I listed before. And I was looking for other work. And I was considering becoming a real estate agent. I was considering, other types of sales jobs, considering moving to another city or back home. And I also met Josh Dorkin, the founder of BiggerPockets. And I offered, because I was such a fan of the community and saw the power of what this was doing and how it was changing people's lives, I offered to work for him for free, which is a funny offer, and I think a lot of people, maybe particularly young people, are always like, "Oh, I'll work for free for the opportunity" or whatever. Seems like it's kind of a lot of liability.
Yeah.
He politely declined that, but after I pestered him 6 more times, he invited me in for an interview and offered me a position of director of operations.
Okay.
And at the time, that was a slight pay cut and a lot of uncertainty. But I believed so strongly in the mission of the business and thought it was such a good opportunity and great situation that I went for it and was thrilled to be joining as the third employee there. And so over the last 5 years since I joined, I think we've somewhere around 20x'd in revenue and built the team from those 3 team members to about 40 where we have today. And about 2 years ago, that progression, I can bore you with all the details, but basically Josh was the founder and began offloading more and more responsibilities and managing the business and running the business to me over time, where I was running various several teams, kind of in charge of some of the brand, various revenue streams, those sorts of things. And in 2017, he began stepping away from the business. I took over as president in 2018 and then led us through a recapitalization where we brought on some investor partners with a private equity group called McCarthy Capital out of Omaha, Nebraska. And ever since, I've been running the company as both CEO and president.
All right, man. Well, congratulations, first of all, for your hustle and for taking that risk. Not many people will leave a Fortune 500 company to basically go to a startup. I mean, because that's basically what it was. It was Josh and Brandon and now you. So going through that transition, man, what were you thinking? Why did you really decide to take on that risk? And what were some of the fears? Were you fearful at doing this?
Yeah, I was certainly a little fearful, but I think, I see a huge correlation between financial habits and, the comfort with risk, right? So I had $25,000. I was around that 20,000 mark, moving on to 25,000 by the time I started at BiggerPockets in my savings account.
Okay.
Right? And I spent like $2,000 a month. So I had basically a full year of savings and, wasn't really like in a position where leaving that job could hurt me. I knew I could probably go back and get a $50,000 a year job, no problem, in the near future. And I had all those savings. So it wasn't like this, it changed the dynamic for joining a startup from this is an irresponsible risk to this is a incredible opportunity. And that's really, and I think for me at least, and it probably differs for everyone, the fact that I was spending little and had a nest egg, which to me felt like a lot, and it was a lot relative to my spending, enabled me to make that distinction in my mind. So the fear was much less than the excitement of the opportunity and feeling good about joining a great company with a great mission.
Perfect, man. So tell me, I know during this time you were just doing your first acquisition. So let's talk about, that first real estate purchase, man. What was it? How did you acquire it? And let's go over some of the numbers. So first of all, what was it? What did you purchase?
Sure. So backing up just a couple months before I joined BiggerPockets, I had joined the BiggerPockets community and put out a post to the forums saying that I was a new aspiring real estate investor looking to purchase my first duplex towards the end of the year. This was early May of 2014. And a couple of people greeted me and responded, were very nice. One of them was a lady named Mickey. And Mickey responded to me, welcomed me to the community, asked me about what I was looking for. And a few months later, in September, she sent me a duplex. The duplex was a home path foreclosure. So it had been foreclosed on,
Okay.
and was offered only to owner occupants. So I had a nice advantage, and remember this is 2014, and the market was at its peak. It was not going to go up any higher. So this was a really dangerous time to buy real estate. I'm being facetious here, but this is exactly how it's felt every single year for the last 6, 7, 8 years.
Yep.
And and so properties were moving pretty quickly and going up in value pretty quickly. My advantage on that property was, again, it was a home path property. So investors were not able to submit bids on it until owner occupants had already submitted them. House hacking wasn't a huge term at this point in a competitive environment. So I was able to go in and have 10, 15 days to talk with a couple of investors. I talked to an investor buddy I'd met through a mastermind group locally, and he walked through the property with me and gave me a lot of encouraging. This is a pretty good deal. You should probably get this one. Which kind of helped me get over that hump. And so I ended up closing on that in November. And it was a duplex, 2-bed, 1-bath units. Each unit rented for about $1,100. That was the kind of estimate I went in with, which proved accurate. When I bought it, it was vacant. So I moved into one unit and fixed it. I moved into the worst unit and put the last finishing touches on the other better unit. And it still took me about 3 months to get there, partially because I was a little lazy and could have done a little better. It took me about 3 months to get a tenant in there. And when I finally placed them, that was a big day. I had a roommate in my unit. In 2, I was earning $1,150 because it was $1,100 plus $50 in cat rent from the tenant next door, and then $550 for my roommate in my unit. So that's $1,700 in rent. My mortgage payment was $1,550, and so I'm eking out about $150 on a good month. I probably was closer to net break even or maybe a little net negative, but that was a vast improvement over the $550, $600 I was paying in rent previously.
Yeah, because now you're living free, and you have the tax benefits, you have the debt pay down and everything like that. So that really puts you in a strong position. How much did you pay for that property?
Sure. I paid $240,000 and I put down $12,000, 5% using an FHA loan.
Okay. Perfect. So, and now let's just say you're at, break even to $100 a month cash flow. What was next after that? First of all, before we get into that, tell me about the vetting process of your first tenant.
Sure. So I read a article on BiggerPockets. At that point, I had the advantage of being a employee there, so I found the article pretty easily, written by my coworker Braden Turner, and I just downloaded a guide to screening and vetting tenants. And I had a form that I downloaded. I had them sign it, and I called their prior 3 landlords, ran the credit, criminal, and background check, and placed a great pair of tenants in there. So it wasn't really that big of an issue from the tenant screening process because I followed a formula that seems to work for a lot of people. The bigger issue was I just needed to get the place rent ready. And it was like that thing where there's only 5% of the work left to do and you just don't get around to doing it. That's the killer in a lot of life and business things. And that hurt me. I probably lost $2,000, which is a big deal at that point.
Yeah.
So for not doing that. Yeah.
Did you do all of the work yourself, or did you have a contractor or a handyman?
I had a contractor do a large plumbing project where a lot of the galvanized piping needed to be replaced. It was kind of all rusted out in the crawl space, but basically everything else I did myself. Staining cabinets, painting, floorboards, toilet, all that good stuff. Vanity cabinets, those types of things I did. So.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So you have this duplex, you're living for free. You have your tenant in one unit, you have your roommate in the other unit. You're working at BiggerPockets. in your mind, what are you thinking next? What am I doing next? What is Scott Trench's thought process right there in that position?
Well, that year, the duplex was about 4 miles away from work, so I was able to bike every day to work. I was playing rugby, so it was kind of just like, hey, I hit a milestone here. I've got a good career opportunity. I just need to buckle down, work hard, have fun, and save up and stockpile, rebuild my cash stockpile here aggressively. So for the next 12, 15 months, I biked into work every day, brought my lunch, packed my food, spent as little as possible, wrote a bunch of blog posts whenever Josh would let me, and did my best to help BiggerPockets grow, and kind of just built things back up. So it was kind of unexciting grind period, I think, in that next period there from March 2015-ish to June 2016.
So do you think that was your biggest financial risk, or was it another risk that you've taken that you feel was your biggest risk?
I've taken bigger risks since then from a dollar standpoint, but from a life position standpoint, that was the big set of risks. Changing the job and buying a duplex all at once, right? When you're starting from basically scratch, that was the no relative risks I've taken since then have been on the same scale.
Okay. So what are you doing right now, Scott, as far as your real estate investing purchases and acquisitions? What are you working on? I know you have the duplex. Do you have anything else? What other properties are you holding?
Sure. So I live in another house hack duplex right now. I have so it's 2 duplexes. I have a quadplex. It's about a mile and a half from where I currently live. I have a stock portfolio. I'm a big index fund investor with a large portion of my wealth in addition to real estate. And then I also invest in a syndication in Phoenix.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So with the volatility in the market, how are you navigating, or how are you holding on to your stock position? Are you a little leery? Are you thinking about exiting and deploying that capital somewhere else? Kind of what's your mindset with that?
Yeah, my personal position is I have roughly the same amount of I invest in real estate, stocks, BiggerPockets, and cash, and I've invested probably reasonably similar amounts in those areas. So I have a large cash position now. I'm working on reducing that by investing in other places. But to me, the point of this is to invest for the long term. And if you go back to 2013, every year multiple major media outlets produce very convincing analysis about why a bubble is coming in the next 12 to 18 months. The next bubble is always 12 to 18
months away.
It is always 12 to 18 months away. And here is a ridiculously compelling set of data, yield curve, prices topping out, super metrics that have always predicted every previous crash are always being printed. And so one of these days they're going to be right. Right. But if I don't invest for the long term, I feel like I'm slowly losing if I'm not doing that. So I'm going to continue to consistently invest in real estate, in stocks. I'm going to continue working hard here at BiggerPockets, and I'm going to continue to try to create assets and generally live a sound lifestyle. And I think that's a winning game in any market conditions. It's effectively dollar cost averaging across these asset classes over time. So if the market tanks, I will have liquidity to buy more. If the market goes up, I'm in the game, so I continue to win. And if the market stays flat, I'm producing cash flow and continuing to save and invest more. So, it's kind of like I don't really care there, but I also have a situation that I think is relatively insulated from those things because of I hold some cash.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, because you're diversified. So, if one goes down, the other one normally will pick up. So great positioning with that. So you're at 8 doors, and then you have this syndication in Phoenix. Tell me about this syndication here in Phoenix, because as you know, I'm here in Phoenix. What do you have going on? What major project are you looking at here?
Sure. So it's an apartment complex, and it's a larger deal. I trust the operator of this deal, and one of the things that I invest here in Denver for long-term appreciation and equity buildup. I think that over a 30-year period, I'm going to look back and experience a 3, 4, 5% long-term appreciation yield. That's a speculation, but that's something I believe about Denver, and perhaps a lot of Phoenix people believe that about Phoenix.
Yeah.
And in Denver, in Phoenix, in a lot of these hot markets, you have low cap rates. When you have a low cap rate, you have a lot of operating leverage. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose that I have a property that produces $100,000 in income, right? At a 10 cap, I'm buying that property for $1 million.
Yep.
Right? At a 4 cap, I'm buying it for $2.5 million, right? So the investor's initial reaction to this is, I want to buy at a 10 cap because I'm going to get way more cash flow. But on the flip side, if you believe that are a good operator and can rehab a lot of units very quickly and drive up your operating income in a short period of time, you'd rather be in the market with the 4% cap rate. And here's why. So suppose I take that income and I change it from 100 to 200,000, right? I take it from 100 to 200,000. I have to spend $1 million in order to drive that operating income up, right?
Exactly.
In case one, I buy the place for $1 million, I sink $1 million in, and now it's worth $2 million.
$2 million.
Right? In case two, I buy it for $2.5 million, I sink $1 million in, and now I have a property that's worth $5 million. So you see how that works?
Yeah.
Because it's multiplied by, 1 over 0.04.
1 over 0.04.
25.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that is kind of the thesis in there, and I'm sure that a lot of listeners will say, "Oh, this is a speculation."
Yeah.
And they're 100% right? That math, that investment goes belly up right away if cap rates rise, and they go to 6% and properties prices come down, right? But if, as I suspect, they're going to stay relatively flat in the Phoenix market over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and the operator is able to increase that operating income, there's a good amount of leverage there. This is not something that I invest with the majority of my position, but it is, I think, one effective way to make money in an appreciating in a low cap rate environment with a good operator. Understanding that is a risk, and that this is not something that you can put the majority of your position into and feel and sleep soundly at night. But I do think there's a very good chance of earning a good return on an investment like this. And I want to be a part of that and experience some of these other investments and experiment with those types of things. So that's why I chose to make that investment in that market.
So I know finding an operator is not always easy, and vetting that operator is not always easy. One, without spelling or giving away your secret sauce, how did you find your operator, and how did you vet it?
I've known this guy for years, and found him on BiggerPockets. Read a lot of stuff that he's produced, and I think that's as reasonable a way to go about it as anything else, right? Is get to know people, watch their track record, pay attention while you're buying your first couple of properties, and see who's sticking around for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years talking about their commercial real estate investing. And that's a person who maybe they'll lose, maybe they'll win, but maybe your odds of having somebody who gives up when things get tough or flakes or whatever dramatically decline by following a formula like that.
Okay, perfect. So, have your stock portfolio, you have your passive income right now in Denver, you have your syndication here in Phoenix. You work in BiggerPockets. Tell us about Set for Life, man. Awesome book. Tell our readers what was the inspiration of writing Set for Life?
Yeah, so my personal career goal is I want to help as many people as I possibly can achieve financial independence as early in life as they can. And I believe that the long-term impact of that is going to be massive on society. The more people we can help become financially free. I'm sure that this is a part of your mission as well with this show. when you become financially free, especially earlier on in life, you have the potential. Your potential increases, right? You're able to start a business. You're able to start a nonprofit. You may run for office, right? We dangle the carrot of you're going to drink margaritas on the beach, and maybe you do for a day, but that you're really going to go and get to work and change the world, likely in a positive way. So, Set for Life is really geared towards someone in their early 20s, maybe 30s, college students, high school students, but really that kind of like 20s-ish person who is looking to, as rapidly as possible, move from a standing start to a position that is close, indistinguishable from financial freedom, right? Several $100,000 in net worth, several $1,000s a month in passive income. You decide what financial freedom means to you once you get to that point.
Absolutely.
Right? So the point of the book is like, okay, so how do we get started? You're a median income earner with little to no assets. One, you focus on saving, right? You're going to hear a lot of parallels with my story, right? You focus on spending less. Why? Because you can't really change a median income dramatically overnight. You have to put yourself in a career that has the potential to scale. And you may not be able to do that if you're spending every penny. So the first part of the book is geared towards accumulating what I call financial runway. And if you're able to accumulate a year of financial runway, let's say you spend 30 grand a year, if you have 30 grand in liquidity that you're willing and able to access, then you have a year of runway. And you're going to feel much better about taking that leap and joining a startup that has really big upside potential, or buying a house hack or a real estate investment, a meaningful investment, not $1,000 in an index fund, right? You're going to feel good about making that bigger risk that has bigger upside with it. And then from there, the next phase is going from that 1 year of financial runway to 4 or 5 years of financial runway. You can call it $25,000, $30,000 to $100,000 in net worth that is tangible and real, not just home equity or retirement account wealth, but like real estate equity,
right?
Cash, after tax tradable brokerage accounts. Again, that stuff that gives you real options in your 20s and 30s you can deploy to whatever purpose you want if you saw the opportunity. And for that, that's when we talk about career opportunities, sales or startups or entrepreneurship or whatever it is. What your path is lined up for you if you're honest with yourself at a large corporation or in a traditional career track, right? The uncertainty that comes with leaving that offers tremendous upside, but you can only pursue it if you have that runway and spend less than you earn, and can feel comfortable about that. And then the last phase is moving from that like $100,000-ish net worth, 4 or 5 years of runway, to several $100,000. And this is where investing in entrepreneurship began to play increasingly important roles, because once you have $100, $250, $300, $400, $500,000 to invest, earning a 5, 10, 15% return is a really meaningful difference. There's a meaningful difference between those amounts.
Absolutely.
It's not as worthwhile to focus on like, I want to get a 10% return on my $1,000 investment. It is very meaningful to try to get a 10% return on a $100,000 investment.
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 a month-ish is going to be a major influence on your life decision-making if you can achieve that kind of passive income. So that's kind of the framework of the book. And the goal is, again, help people make those transitions through those marks as rapidly as possible. So, and once you're there, let's call it $500,000 in net worth, $1,000, $2,000 in passive income a month. You're in position to go and attack life and, realize your potential in a way that I think is different than maybe peers who have not done that.
Well, it's the book is definitely something that I am actually buying my daughter. She is a sophomore in college, and we've really been driving home financial freedom with her, and she's really now starting to pick up, starting to bite that apple and chew on it real good. She read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So we've been planting those seeds in her, and this is going to be actually the next book that I'm getting her for her to dive into. She has that entrepreneurial spirit, so we just want to keep on, steering her in the right way. So,
well, thank you,
Scott. Yes, definitely. Scott, I know you're impacting communities such as BiggerPockets and Set for Life following and everything like that. How do you think what you're doing is going to translate into, some of the people that are following?
I hope, I hope that people really just take the message to heart that, it's got to be one of those four things. You got to spend less, you got to earn more, you got to invest aggressively, or you have to create assets. And everybody is going to have a reason why it doesn't work to do those things. And if it doesn't work to do all those things, you're going to be stuck. And that's just the hard truth. My focus has traditionally, the last 5 years, has been on helping people really that are starting out, younger people or people that are earning that median income with few to little to no assets. I'm really becoming interested in kind of expanding that and learning what the challenges are for a middle-class couple who each earn, a upper middle-class couple who has a family and earns a, low, like $100,000 a year kind of situation. What are their challenges? Why does cutting back on spending, which seems to be the obvious solution here, seems so impossible for them? I suspect there's life lessons to be learned as I recently got engaged, and we'll learn over the next couple of years.
Yeah, you got some learning. That's going to happen.
but those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And one of the big interesting challenges that I've got is, I think, we've got a pretty good approach. And I think if you listen to, various podcasts like BiggerPockets Money, which we do, or whatever, that you're going to find that there's a path to financial freedom for most people. What I'm really interested in lately as well is those people that are starting at the bottom. How do you help them get into a position where they can get to the starting line of the race to financial independence and then progress past it? How do you help someone who's, maybe made some mistakes in their life, or has busted credit, or has been homeless? How do you help them get to the starting point, which I think is a median income? And once you're at a median income, how do you then not fall into the middle class trap, but rather skip that and go straight to building wealth and passive income and house hacking and real estate investing and those types of things?
And that's one of the things that set people back is, starting out with massive student loan debt. A lot of people come out with 40, 50, 60, even $100,000 in student loan debt. And it's like, okay, how can I get to zero, so I can get on the right track? So I think you're definitely hitting home with something there, because, a lot of people in their, 30s, 40s are still dealing with student loan debt, that they have just deferred and deferred and deferred. And now, time has come for you to pay up. And, with life expenses, kids, families, now they may have, like in my situation, have a kid that's in college. How do they navigate that on $50,000 a year, or $100,000, between spouse? So definitely continue on that track, man. Make sure your fiance is on board. You'll definitely learn quickly, that, a happy wife, is a happy life. So you're doing some awesome things. I definitely wanted to get you on the show here, just to really reiterate some of the things that I talk about with my listeners, as far as how can you get to zero so you can start, investing in real estate and investing in some other strategic positions. So kind of wrapping up here, Scott, let's go and let's tie it all together, man. And I got some hot seat questions for you, and let's see if you can get these out as quick as you can. So real quick, number one, starting out, what would you do differently than what you did in the past?
So this starts back in college, and a lot of life decisions I think are made when you just kind of take what's in front of you without kind of considering all the other options and hustling a little bit more. And I only interviewed at one place, and then I did an internship there, and I took that job right out of the gate. And I think that I could have had a much higher probability of having a great kickoff to my career in that first year if I'd been a little bit more intentional about figuring out what I wanted to do and what a good opportunity looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at 2021, most people are in that position where they're just really not sure. But I think you're definitely headed in the right track. So what is your greatest commodity outside of capital? What do you think is the greatest thing that pushes you forward outside of, having the liquidity?
I'd say knowledge and networking. I have I do not have experience the way other people have it, because I'm 29, right? So, I have read a large number of books to compensate as much as possible. There's no substitute for experience, but the best I can do is to read and learn from as many people who have experience as I possibly can. So that has allowed me to approach situations from a position maybe not of experience, but of where I've come across this before in a book, and I kind of have a good mental model of how to approach the situation. And then I've met as many people as I possibly can and surrounded myself with great mentors, like our chairman of the board, Josh Dorkin, the founder of BiggerPockets, and Brandon Turner, and many of my colleagues here, who I had a chance to get to learn from and bounce ideas and thoughts and strategies off of.
Okay. All right. What is one thing you could do to be more productive?
Yeah, I had a really good track record of keeping a daily log where I have exactly what my top goal is and what I'm working towards that. And I have 4 or 5 years of perfect focus on that. And then I kind of dropped off in the last 6 months and haven't been as diligent about it. So I've really recommitted recently to that, to having a daily journal where I write out my goals, decide what the top priority for the day is, and do not stop until that top priority is done.
Okay, perfect. That goes back to being intentional. So what drives your ambition, Scott?
Starting out, it was just the selfish desire to be financially free and completely independent. I've kind of rounded that corner. And so now my big ambition is that network effect I described earlier. How do I help as many people as possible become financially free as early in life as possible so that they can go on to have that kind of downstream impact positively on society in those kind of like untold myriad ways that they're going to do it.
Okay. And what do you believe is your greatest challenge, albeit internal or external? What's your biggest challenge?
I had some, but I'm not sure I like that one anymore. I think my greatest challenge is, now that I've kind of constructed a number of systems that appear to be working, I need to just kind of let them execute and find the next thing to kind of keep my attention turned to. I'm kind of like a million miles an hour type person. So Sometimes I meddle, I think, a little too much in something that's working and going. And the best thing to do is let it be patient.
Yep.
Buy real estate and wait, right? As I say. That's difficult for me. So I think I kind of just need to let my systems execute and go and put my attention on projects that really do get benefit from my energies being focused on them.
And coincidentally, that's when I created this question. That was one of the things that I face. I'm always the type of person that, I need to do this, need to do that, and I'm kind of putting my hands in a little bit of everything, and dropping these little seeds everywhere to see it grow, without focusing on the big picture. So, man, great. So
a great example of that is like in the workplace, right? I got a great team here and they all are fantastic at what they're doing. And every time I try to meddle in something, I seem to make it worse. And I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way, but their way is better than mine. And so I'm learning that, like, that's been a big challenge that I'm trying to do a much increasingly better job on a regular basis.
Okay, perfect. What is the latest business book you've read?
All right, so this is a great book. It's called Super Thinking. It's a book of mental models. If anyone has read anything by Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett, they talk about this concept of mental models. A good example of this is, that maybe you haven't heard of, is the Cobra effect. So I think when the British ruled India, they wanted to eliminate or reduce the cobra population significantly. So they would pay a shilling for every tail that was submitted, right? Mm-hmm. And so what happened was the local population began breeding cobras. So the population skyrocketed. Then they stopped paying it because they realized what was going on, and all those cobras got released in the wild, and the population remained high for many years thereafter. So that's a mental model called the Cobra effect, which says that if you incentivize a certain behavior, then you may end up getting the opposite of your intended effect. And this is a book of 150-ish of those types of mental models that you can kind of know, okay, here's the terminology behind what's going on, and then you can apply that to a wide variety of situations that may play to your advantage. So highly recommend Super Thinking as a next read for many of the listeners.
Okay, Super Thinking. Okay, and what is the latest real estate book you've read?
Latest real estate book I've read is House Hacking by Craig Curlop. So it's a BiggerPockets book, which is a shameless plug. But I think a very powerful tool, as I've discussed earlier, for anyone aspiring to become a real estate investor.
And that book just dropped, last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it's actually in pre-order now, and we'll be launching in a couple of days here. So I'm not sure when this show goes live, but
Perfect. I interviewed Craig about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about the book. So definitely going to have that in the show notes, along with Super Thinking and Set for Life. So Scott, I really appreciate you talking to the listeners, man. How can we get in contact with you? How can we reach you? How can we get Set for Life?
Sure, you can reach out to me on BiggerPockets. You can follow me on Instagram at Scott_Trench. Or you can kind of check out the BiggerPockets Money Show if you want to hear me talk more about money endlessly. So,
well, you and Mindy do an awesome job on that. So, man, kudos to you guys on that. All of this information will definitely be in the show notes, guys. And family, I want to thank you for allowing Scott to speak with us, and I hope you gleaned some valuable information from Scott. He is definitely an influencer in the real estate community and the personal finance communities. So, Scott, before signing off, anything you want to leave with our listeners?
No, just good luck, and remember those 4 central tenets or pillars or whatever you want to call it of financial independence: spend less, earn more, invest aggressively, create assets. You got to do one, ideally a combination of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate it, man. And I will definitely get this information out to you on the air date. All right, guys, signing off. Thank you for listening to today's show. I picked up some great actionable items, and I'm sure you did as well. If so, let me know. You can always reach me via social media at facebook.com/MRCSMaloney, Twitter at MRCSMaloney, and of course, IG at MRCS Maloney. You can also always reach me via email at mmaloney@equityri.com. Make sure you reach out to our guests as well. You can always find their contact information in the show notes below. If you have not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Join the family. And while you're at it, leave us a 5-star review. This is how we tell if we're providing you with what you need for your journey. If there's someone you would like for me to interview, or if there's a subject matter you would like for me to cover, please let me know. Finally, if you're looking for additional information about real estate investing, go to equityrealestateblog.com. Also, youtube.com/Marcus Maloney. Until next time, family, always enjoy the journey.